This comes from an officer with U.S. Army CID, so Criminal Investigations Division.
I like it.
This is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
It sounds for so that's kind of cool that we actually have military cops asking questions.
That's
and so
fantastic.
forth. Now they have to comply with the Fourth Amendment, but would you agree that it's a little watered down?
A little bit watered down. They kind of have more power with more water for sure.
Yes, definitely a lot more water at the military. So the cop is saying, does the cat out of the bag search apply to digital evidence too? Now, I was rewatching one of your videos called Cat Out of the Bag Searches, which I will talk what that is for. Actually, I'm gonna have you explain it.
All right.
And I was wondering if it would also apply to digital devices. In the Army, we will sometimes have family members that, or service members, family members of service members bring us digital evidence where they said they saw child porn on it. Can we use the cat out of the bag search to justify the search of the digital evidence without first seeking a warrant? So let's first tell the audience what is a cat out of the bag search, and then answer the question.
All right, sounds good. Well, to answer the question, yes, is where we're going to get down to. So that term we talk about, cat out of the bag, right? That's you think about that. You got that cat out of the bag. Are you putting that thing back in there?
Right. So do you mean like the something is already known to
Something's
everybody?
out. The Jack in the Box has presented itself. The cat's out of that bag. You're not getting that back in there.
Okay.
It's exposed itself. It's seen the world. You're not putting that back in there. So when we start talking about this comes from a really famous case involving the FedEx way back when, back in the 80s, right?
Early 80s, like
early
19, I think 1984 is when it got decided.
there. Yeah, down in Florida, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Jacobson. And where this stems from is packages coming through FedEx and it gets damaged. Just, for no reason at all.
It happens, yeah.
Gets stuck in the conveyor belt, and the FedEx employee opens it up, see what kind of damage is in there. Maybe they're responsible for the heirloom.
Oh, right.
That was smashed.
Versus junk.
Junk.
Yep.
Right. So they took a look at that. That's probably their policy. And oh my goodness, lo and behold, there's I think 4 tubes of white powdery substance.
Yep.
My wheelhouse. We're talking about
dope.
We're talking about dope.
Yep.
And so what they do is like, oh my goodness, looks like dope. Package it back up, seal it back up, and call a place I used to work for, the DEA, as a task force officer there. So they call them and they say, yeah, we'll come down there and check that out. DEA rolls down there and they're good at opening up stuff and getting into things. So they see this package, they take the package and they open it back up. Crack it open, they see these 4 tubes.
Now, they had a warrant, right?
No.
No warrant.
Not at all.
Yeah, maybe this is where the problem arises.
We'll see.
Okay, go on.
That's probably what we're talking about.
Okay.
Right? So they get down, they open this thing up, crack it open, they see these four tubes that the FedEx employee saw. So, that's it, that's the package. So 84, right?
It got
84.
It went down in 1981.
Right, 81.
It got decided in 84.
84.
Yeah.
So we're talking early 80s in Florida. So I really want to set the picture.
Yeah, you know your cop culture.
Right. We want to set the tone for what's going on here. So the DEA agents being good at what they know how to do. Right. They're like, all right, it looks like the white powdery stuff here. It looks like cocaine, but how are we going to make sure?
So they probably have a field test kit for cocaine in 1981. Is that what they're probably using?
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
Actually, I can demonstrate it for you right here, right now.
What does it look like?
Oh,
that's what a 1981 cocaine test.
That's the good shit right there.
Yeah,
that is it right there.
Yeah. They probably didn't have the vials like we have
Maybe
today.
not,
You know?
right?
Yeah.
I think somebody, someone left the kit in the car.
The finger test. Somebody says the finger test. Yeah,
but they do end up testing it. They end up testing the narcotics. They do confirm that it's cocaine, and the case proceeds. And I think they did controlled delivery eventually, and people get arrested and we go to the Supreme Court. And arguments made like, hey, I have an expectation of privacy in a package that I mail, right?
Sure.
Yeah, of course, here. And the fact that it was damaged and FedEx looked inside of it, okay, that's one thing. But their gripe was the government doesn't have the opportunity to come look in my package.
I mean, look, I got to tell you, from a plaintiff's point of view or defendant's point of view in this case, right? It's a very good argument, right?
No,
I mean, because the Fourth Amendment we know does not apply to FedEx, but it does apply to DEA.
Of course.
So what was the Supreme Court going to do here, and why?
We're going to circle right back to where we started. The cat out of the bag. So the analysis, when the court started looking at this, is like, well, hang on a second. Yes, that person has an expectation of privacy in that box, in those tubes as you ship it. However, that private citizen search took place. Their expectation of privacy was relinquished. Somebody else saw what was illegal.
And they told that to the DEA.
And they told that to the DEA. Even though they packaged it back up. They almost reset it to its original packaging.
Yeah.
That expectation of privacy has been diminished, and you can't put the cat back in the bag.
And that's why it's called the cat of the bag. I see. Now, how does that apply to digital devices? I mean, we do know that the Supreme Court has said in a case called Riley,
Right,
that cell phones, for example, are going to be treated differently for search instant arrest purposes.
absolutely.
A cell phone is not a bag. So how do we cross that bridge?
So if we're applying those same principles in the circumstance they're talking about here, where someone, a private citizen, has seen the child pornography on the phone.
Okay.
So that expectation of privacy has been let out of the bag. You can't put it back in there. Now, when we talk about this, can cops look at that? Can cops replicate that search that the private citizen did? And the answer is yes.
Okay.
We're going to talk about a caution and a pro tip here in a second here.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about that, essentially no expectation of privacy. It's been relinquished. Search, you're replicating what they did and going no further. So the answer when we're talking about electronic devices is we can replicate that search and go no further than that private citizen did.
Yeah. So I get it. Now, look, in reality, you had a pro tip, right? What's the pro tip? Why don't you drop the pro tip?
It's not best practice. If we're talking we're talking about child pornography. Okay.
It's a very
serious offense.
Yeah.
We're talking about a phone where our lives are essentially housed in our pocket.
Yeah.
Maximum expectations of privacy, a lot of protections in that. So there's a couple of huge layers in this that can we do it constitutionally? Yes.
Yeah.
Best practice, get a paper. You know, there's concerns of exigency if you know maybe that someone could dump the phone before we could get to it. And if that's a concern, Faraday bag if we can prevent it or get the information while you can.
All right, so I like this. Now, first of all, I don't think the Supreme Court called it a cow the bag search.
No,
I think that's what we call it here, right? I mean, I don't think anybody else calls it that, but I think it's a good analogy, right?
I think so.
I've seen courts call this a private search doctrine, which is probably the generic vanilla way, but it's not as fun as saying cow the bag.
Right.
And also, I've also seen it being called the silver plate doctrine, where you're basically handing over the evidence on a silver plate.
Yeah.
So the key though is look, I think it's kind of easy for the courts to uphold a cow the bag search, you know, for backpacks. You know, a roommate searched the backpack of his roommate. They give it to you. You replicate the search. You find a gun, drugs, insert the blank. These child porn cases are usually involving hard drives. The phone cases are always going to be tougher because again, you have to replicate the search.
Right.
And that person that's telling you, hey, this is what I did. Better, you know, the cop better understand exactly how to retrace those steps.
You said something real important on the backpack, just to touch on real quick. In a private citizen search, let's say your roommate's selling dope out of your house here, and the private citizen goes into the backpack and they hand you that backpack.
Okay.
We're good, right?
I think so.
Okay. Now, what if it's in the roommate's room? The backpack is in there and the roommate's like, I don't ever go in there. That place is nasty.
But the searcher, the roommate that found the evidence, he went in there at one time at least.
He went in there at one time, but he left it there.
Okay. I think we have a problem because the problem I see is that, okay, cat out of the bag is one thing. Okay. Replicating a private search. And the other issue though, is how are you getting access to that item? Is that where you're going with this?
That's where I'm going.
Okay. Yep. So I would say if it's in the roommate's room, you have to leave it there.
Sounds good.
All right.